Chapter 7. A Chase. Holly, I'll watch for the dog napper while you change your clothes, Ricky offered. When he comes out, let's follow him and see what we can find out. His sister was not sure they should try this alone. She suggested that Ricky get Mr. Hollister. Maybe I should, he agreed, and raced off as Holly hurried into the cottage. While dressing, Holly could see from her window that the suspected man had not come from the cottage next door. Maybe he was the dog warden after all, Holly began to think, even if he did look like the thief and had a bandaged hand. Oh dear, I hope we can find out, she sighed. The little girl dashed outdoors to watch for the reappearance of the suspect. She was just in time to meet Ricky and Pete, who explained that Mr. Hollister had gone off to look for Peppo the clown. Pete's going to help us instead, Ricky announced. The three children went to continue the watch for the man. Pete asked his brother and sister if they were very sure he was the one they had seen running from the dog show in Shoreham. I'm positive, Ricky declared. He ran right past me when he came out of the armory with the poodle. Well, said Pete, if you're wrong and he is the dog warden here, he'll have a badge or something to prove it. At this moment, the door of the cottage opened. Out came the man in the bright blue suit. He ignored the children, striding off toward the street. Excuse me, sir, called Pete, hurrying after him. Please wait, we'd like to ask you something. The stranger turned with a look of impatience. Well? My brother and sister said you told them you're a local dog warden. May I see your badge, please? The man turned very red and snarled, You're a fresh kid. What right have you got to ask that? He started to walk off, but Pete blocked his path. We're just interested, Pete pretended. We've never seen a real dog warden before. Please show it to us. The unpleasant suspect glared angrily at the Hollisters, then whipped a paper from his pocket. The boy read the sheet, looked sheepish, and handed it back. Putting the paper in his pocket, the man said, There, now are you satisfied? I'm very sorry, sir, Pete answered. Turning to Holly and Ricky, he announced, This is Mr. Frank Shaw, and he is the dog warden. Mr. Shaw said huffily, That's my name, all right, and yours ought to be Snooper. Now get out of my way, I'm in a hurry. With that, he strode to a car and drove off. Ricky stood staring after him. I don't care if he has a paper to prove he's a dog warden. I know he's the Shoreham dog napper. He felt bad to think the thief had gotten away so easily. Nothing Pete and Holly said could persuade him that he might be wrong about the man. We'll get him someday. Wait and see, Ricky prophesied as he ran into the Hollister cottage to get the clown cap. When he returned, the three children hurried off to where Pam, Sue, and their mother were waiting to make the trip to Circus Island. Mr. Hollister had not returned, so the family strolled along the waterfront toward an inlet that ran at right angles to the lagoon and out into the ocean. Don't the boats look pretty, said Pam, admiring several sailboats that lay at anchor, their tall masts pointing skyward. Yes, they certainly do, Mrs. Hollister agreed. And I like the houseboats. They're so bright and cozy looking. I'd like to live in that one with the candy top, said Sue. She pointed toward Circus Island where 3 houseboats were moored. One had a red and white striped roof that looked like a peppermint stick. Do you suppose one of those boats is Peppo's? Pam asked. A boy who was loitering nearby said, Yeah, the one at the far end. As Mrs. Hollister and Sue started back for the causeway, the others paused to talk to the boy. He was about Pete's age, had green-blue eyes, and black hair that stuck straight up on his head. He said his name was Hook Mertine. How do you all know Peppo? He asked with a scowl. Pete explained why the Hollisters had come to Florida, and Holly added, I can hardly wait to meet Peppo. I just love clowns. You all won't like this one. Why not? He's mean, and so are his kids. How do you know? Ricky asked. He didn't like to think of a clown being mean. The boy gestured toward the circus and replied sullenly, I work over there sometimes when they're down here in winter quarters. What do you do at the circus? Pete asked. Help Mike, the monkey man, Hook replied. I carry heavy pails of water for his old animals. The children listened intently as he continued. What do you kids do? Or are you rich and just spend Papa's money? He asked with a sneer. Before Pete had a chance to say that every one of the Hollister children had chores to do at home, and that they often helped at their father's store besides, Hook burst out, I don't like kids that don't work. With that, he yanked the clown cap from Ricky's head and started running up the shore with it toward the causeway. As if this weren't enough, he gave little Sue a push as he passed her. He can't get away with that, Pete cried, and raced off after the bully, with Pam, Holly, and Ricky at his heels. Hook was a fast runner, but so were the Hollisters. By the time they reached the bridge, Pete had almost caught up to the unpleasant fellow. Get him! Ricky shouted. The Hollisters expected Hook to run across the causeway and wondered if they should follow. But to their surprise, the bully turned away from it and sped up the lawn of the Treasure Cove Motel. As he dodged in and out among the cottages, Pete and his brother and sisters kept after Hook. Twice they were almost close enough to grab him, but he darted out of the way. The boy must have felt, though, that he was about to be caught, for suddenly he cried out, Here, take your old clown cap. With a swing of his arm, he threw it directly into Ricky's face. Then Hook leaped for the street and jumped aboard a bus that was just leaving. From inside, he waved tauntingly at them. Another Joey Brill, said Pete in disgust. Do you suppose he'll bother us when we go to the circus? Holly asked. The children turned and started back for the causeway. Just as they passed the cottage next to the Hollisters, the young woman who lived there rushed out excitedly. Seeing the children, she cried, My precious doggies! I'm afraid they've been stolen! She hurried toward the Hollisters, who had stopped short and stood listening in amazement. Oh, please do something, she pleaded. Help me find my little pets.